Right. So, as I said, skills are our specific learning activities. They are learned and have an expertise over a time. They tells us what is required to perform a particular job. Whereas competencies are totally talking about your behaviors. So it's a kind of a mix of your skills, your knowledge, your abilities. They talk about how how does an individual perform a job successfully? How do they behave in the workplace environment to achieve the desired result? Right? We also talked about what is a competency matrix, what is a mapping, how are bars used. Do you guys recall? Yeah, okay. So I'll show you the chart. Maybe it will be clear then. So this is how a competency matrix looks like.
Ma'am,
So
we're not
what?
able to see the slides, ma'am.
Oh, you're not?
No, ma'am.
Everyone?
Yes, ma'am. It's just the folder screen that's been shared.
Just a minute. Let me do it again. 1 second.
Okay, ma'am.
Now?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. So this is how a competency matrix looks like. Now, anyone remembers what a matrix was? Yes, Vishal?
Uh, it is their skills, I mean, their instinct, which comes naturally, and the evaluation. And it is, I mean, sorry, it's jumbled again.
No, no, that's okay. At least you're trying. So basically, competencies, we're talking about your behavioral aspects of the job, right? When we're talking about a matrix, we're talking about a grid, we're talking about a structured way of explaining, describing those competencies related to your job. So it is nothing, just a list of competencies that are identified for the organization, for your department, and for your role, right? Once that identification of competencies for your organization, for your department, for your individual role is done, that clarity comes, then it is easier for us to look for people who can match those competencies, right? Yeah. So, when there are days when the weather is pretty hot and you feel like, I want to eat something cold, but I don't want it to be nutty. I don't want it to be salty. Maybe something sweet. So when you're talking about these characteristics and these, specific things, it directly links you to that product. Why don't you have an ice cream, right? If you're looking for something sweet. So very specific things when we are segmenting under individual competencies or job competencies, it becomes very easy for the organization as well as for the HR to map the correct person to it. Okay. Competency mapping is just a process of attaching these competencies to the job roles, and bars, we basically divide them into more detailed aspect just to measure it. Now, why are we putting so much stress on competencies? So if you see, we can't define a competency, then we can't measure it. And if we can't measure it, how are you going to select the correct, best suitable person for a job and then assess him on his performance and make him grow in that particular role, right? So it basically lays a foundation. Are we clear till here? Any questions? Yes, no?
No, ma'am.
Okay, great. So how do competencies helps us at work? Competencies have long been used as a framework to help focus employees' behavior on certain things that matter most to an organization, and how are we going to drive the success. So once we identify the competencies, all we have to do is match those competencies with the person who's been hired for that job. Now, these competencies can be developed, or we already have that in a person, and all we have to do is match it with the job. Now, these competencies basically provide a common structure, a very structured way for us to select, develop, and assess employees. Okay, clear? Who's waiting? Nobody is waiting, Michelle.
Somebody has just put a message in the group. I think it's
But nobody is showing waiting here. 1 second.
Kashu Zaidi.
But it's not showing here.
Okay.
Just a second, I'll speak to her. So, Kekucha, can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am. It's
Great.
pretty much invisible. Yes.
Sorry, it wasn't showing on the screen, and I'm glad he pointed out. Otherwise,
Yeah, ma'am.
okay. So, moving on. Let's understand how it helps us in the organization, competencies.
Ma'am,
A,
a
yeah.
small request I am having. Like,
Sure.
can you please kindly share the slides what we are discussing in the meeting? Because in future, if we want to revise, or if we want to brush up our concept, we can.
Sure.
It will
See,
be a
this is
help.
going to be on the Skill Hub website, so you can download from there. Plus, the recording is also will be available on YouTube, I think, by Vivek. So, in both ways, you'll be getting it.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So far, Kekusha, we've just done a recap of what competencies and skills were, and we're just coming on to the topic on why we're talking so much of competencies and how is it going to be helpful in the organization, especially with the HR processes. So if you see this slide, it says it sets a concrete direction of workforce performance that aligns with the organizational goals and strategies. So A, we are aligning what an organization goal is. Then further it gets divided to departmental goals and individual goals. It enables HR to have a concrete understanding of all employees' abilities and skills. So once the foundation is set, it becomes very clear of what is expected from the job and where does an employee stands. And if there's a gap, how can we bring both them to the same level? Third, it enables HR and trainings to be more accurate, identifying the learning and development needs, allows employees to take ownership of the skills, because then once you understand what is expected out of you and what are you being assessed on, it becomes very easy for a self-assessment, and you can keep a track on your achievements, growth, right? It empowers organization to keep track of what skills employees have, so that the strategy and planning can be worked towards the future skills may be needed. So suppose there's an HR executive and she's doing fairly well, but there are certain competencies that department feel that she lacks in, but can be developed. And if those competencies or behaviors can be developed and she can be trained for a larger role, then that's how the planning and future career, everything is set by the department. It provides a consistent and fair system of measurement for performance evaluation. So there is no biasness, elimination of biasness doesn't happen there. Also, everybody is being gauged on the same parameters. So everybody needs to perform, then only they'll be appraised. It facilitates the recruitment and selection process of employees with a strong fit to role as well as the organization. It sets performance expectations and evaluate employee contribution objectively. So it's not subjective that we are just talking vaguely of something. Everything is very cut to object. It expedite employees to enhance their performance and increase their level of work satisfaction. So you're doing a push factor for your own self when your targets are set and you understand that you're lacking behind. You need to move ahead because first quarter is finished and your target is still there, right? So now these targets are not in terms of achieving your sales targets or monetary or anything else. These targets can also be in terms of what goals have you set for yourself for that particular role. Now this line I'll explain you with an example in later slides. Map an employee's professional development and further career planning. It assesses competency gaps in individuals and teams and provide effective inputs for creating modules for increased development and training resources. So as an HR, when we are training, recruiting, or assessing or playing any process of HR with our employees, we are actually assessing them, we are actually gauging them on different parameters. And that's when you realize that this employee needs to be developed in certain areas. And that's how a training program is designed for an employee. Are we clear till here? Any questions? I'm going to talk about all these points in detail because I understand this is going to be too much for you all. So if you see this slide, everyone can see the slide, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. So HR, as I said earlier, also wears way too many hats. So you'll have to ignore the background because I have a 6-year-old hyperactive kid, which has been told repeatedly not to disturb me, but you know how it works, right? So just give me a minute, I'll give him a dose. Sorry. Okay. So HR has these processes on a broader level, though there are loads of them, but on a broader level, and how competencies are related to it, we'll talk about it. So one is recruitment. Now these are very broad heads and we can always talk about them in detail. Recruitment and selection is what we'll be covering in our next class, day after. So recruitment, it is a fully developed competency models. It is used for development of job postings. So once the competencies are set, suppose for a salesperson who is working into a store, an apparel store, silly wise, a entry level job there, what are the basic competencies that he needs to have? He needs to be confident in attending customers. His communication, verbally, listening skills, and writing should be basics to this extent that he's able to understand what the customer wants and easily able to convert their need and demands into sales. If not, then a future requirement is created, right? These are the basic competencies that we're looking at. So once we understand that these basic competencies is a requirement to hire a sales staff for an entry level, we do the hiring accordingly. So we only look for people, or we only ask questions which are situational based or behavioral based during the interview, so that we assess them if this particular person is the correct fit for this job role. Does it make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So for example, teacher's role, we want someone who can identify students' needs, create a learning environment, and is good at lesson planning, designing. These are basic behaviors, competencies that we're looking at in a teacher. Now, how are we going to find out whether these behaviors are there in the candidate or we need to develop it? How do we assess them on? So there are various ways. To begin with, I'll talk about two. One is your behavioral or your situational interviews method. So interview a face-to-face or a telephonic, and then you have different rounds. And I'm sure while you were studying in your college and all, you must have sat for placements and must have cleared an aptitude test, a written test, a JD, or a face-to-face, psychometric assessments, right? So there are various levels. So face-to-face interviews, you can give them a hypothetical situation and see what is the thought process of that person. So suppose a customer care associate, I'll continue with the same example, of a Levi's store walks in for an interview and I'm a recruiter, so I'll ask him questions. Okay, suppose you're standing in a store and it's a very hot day and a customer walks in and just stands there quietly and just looks around in the store. What is the first thing that you'll do? Now the customer, this person can say, ma'am, I'm going to ask him, what are you looking for, ma'am? I'm going to offer the products that we have. Or he can say, ma'am, it's a pretty hot day. I think I'm just going to ask her, ma'am, would you like to have some water? Why don't you stand in the AC and be comfortable first? And once she settles, then I'll ask her what is her requirement and what is she's looking for. So do you see the difference? Yes, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. So as a recruiter, you are tend to be more attracted to the response, which was second, right? So this is how you actually, based on an hypothetical or a situational question, you gauge assessments. Behavioral, again, questions are designed in a way where behavior gets highlighted. We'll talk about it again in our coming sessions. We can
Ma'am,
also, yes.
I had a doubt. When companies look for a candidate, they have a certain procedure where they have aptitude and so on things.
Right.
So, what do they give more importance to? Is it the competency that they give more importance to, or like how you told that they ask situational question, or the knowledge of the candidate that they give more important to, like their
Yeah.
knowledge?
See, that depends on what is the role, what is the organization goal is, right? Now, whenever a hiring process is designed, the format that they assess you on is a mix of your assessment on your knowledge, your skills, your ability, that becomes your competencies, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So if you're coming from as a fresher from a college pass out, we understand you don't have a work experience. So our questions, be it situational or behavioral aspects, are going to be designed in a way that caters to your environment in the college. But in any which way, we are assessing you on what we think would be perfect for a particular job. So no matter what or how the process is designed, you will be assessed on your knowledge, your skills and abilities. And these three becomes your competencies. And if you have a particular skill and if you have highlighted that in your resume or it comes during an interview, they'll dig into more.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah? Okay. So how does the structured competencies helps in recruitment? Once the structure is set, it saves us time because we are not looking for everybody. We are only looking for people who can match these competencies or these skill sets for us. It helps us to select the best candidate. It eliminates biasness. So if a manager comes during a recruitment or a hiring process and says, one of my friends is coming for an interview, just hire him. It doesn't work that way because we have a certain format. And if it passes through those formats, then we can hire him, right? It shows uniformity in HR processes across. it is process driven. So it's not an individual or a perception driven thing, it's a process driven. So if I am there sitting as a recruiter, or nobody else or anybody else comes in, the process remains the same of selection. And these competencies, because it is linked and aligned to your organizational goals, so this person who's joining is or will be trained to be aligned with your organizational goals. Is this recruitment as a process clear? Why competency is important for this process? Guys, I won't let you sleep, huh? So I'll keep asking you a yes or a no.
Yes, ma'am. Clear.
Great. Okay, moving on. Goal setting. Now, nowadays, every organization is doing this exercise because they've realized that it helps an individual to assess where they stand, and if they set the goals for themselves, they become.
Ma'am,
Yes.
can you just on this slideshow? It is
Sure.
better to be in the.
Sure. Is it better now?
Yeah, ma'am.
So I was saying that sooner or later organizations are realizing that once the goal settings exercise involves the employees becomes more accountable and responsible for their own performances. Now, this is a one-time thing, a yearly thing. So what happens? You divide your year into 2 or 3 quarters, or quarters, or 6 months, or this entirely depends on the organization how they want to divide it. Based on those division of the entire year, you set goals for your own self. Now, these can be professionals, and some organizations also initiated that personal goals should also be attached to it. Now, the personal goals which are closely linked to your professional job. Now, if I'm working as a teacher and my personal goal would be to learn another language so that I can connect with the students, to understand how Google works so that it's easy for me to understand what or where the students are coming from and how are they posting the queries. So this becomes my personal goal, which is going to be benefiting me personally, but professionally it will be helping me, right? So based on your competency, a yearly goal setting exercise is done. So if you see this example here, this is how goals are set in corporate organization. The title of the goal, I have given an example here. Suppose for a teacher, it will be to increase the completion rate of the course program. So I want more and more students to come, attend the lecture and complete the course. So what are the actions that you'll be taking to achieve these goals? A, I'll be developing new communications to promote program to new students. So students who are joining in late, I'll be designing a new communication strategy for them so that new and old doesn't get mixed and they understand both the course separately. I am also will be collaborating with senior students to increase the program awareness. Or I might add a buddy system where a senior and a new hire or a new joiner will be clubbed together, and the senior would be helping the new joiner in case of any queries. But how am I going to measure it? The new students are informed about the program within 3 days of joining. So I'm giving myself a target for that goal. Within 3 days of any new joining, I have to inform that student that this is what the program is all about. Also, I will give a download of the buddy program to seniors within 6 days. So if a new joiner joins, within 6 days, he gets a buddy as a senior person, right? Due date, again, I've given a target to myself. My current status is in progress. When I think it's completed, I'll write complete. Completion only 5% is done because out of say 30 students in the class, I've only been managed to do few. So this is how it works. And it comes as a goal setting separate exercise, or it can be clubbed with your performance appraisal. It depends on the organization. But this is how more or less it looks like. It is crucial to set a specific time bound goals for your corporate, because what happens when you're setting time bound goals, you are pushing yourself to achieve that target and you're on track. Doing this before you begin can help clarify priorities. So when you are setting the goals yourself for your own self, you are eliminating a lot of areas and you get just prioritize towards the thing that you think needs an improvement, you think that needs your focus, right? So how does competencies helps in goal setting exercise? Again, when the competencies are set, we know where we are and how I want to increase. So if I'm an HR executive and I want to become an HR manager, I know what are the competencies required for my role and what I need to do so that I do a par excellence job in that current role. So it saves a lot of time. It keeps an employee on track, eliminates distractions. It improves your performance because you're continuously, regularly pushing yourself. And it is again aligned to the organizational goals. Can we move ahead?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Training and development. Now understand HR process, everything is linked. Everything is dependent on each other. You can't hire if you don't have competencies in place. And if you're going to hire a wrong person for a job, training becomes a tedious process, identification, mapping becomes a tedious process, and then bringing that employee and working on that employee gives a double investment, right? So training and development, these framework defines the skills and knowledge requirement of a job. And it can help the organization close the gaps and create talent development strategy. So remember when I showed you the career mapping sheet, it says that a particular person, an employee, is either strong, weak, or needs a little training in communication. So communication as a competency was run through the entire organization with all the employees. And we came to a conclusion that there are 75 employees in marketing departments which need training on communication, the listening part, the listening skills, because they don't have the patience to listen to the customer. And when they don't listen to the customer, they don't understand what the requirement and need is. So this is what a department feedback was given to us, and this is what we understood during a mapping exercise, that 75% or 75 employee needs training on this. And once we get the data and understand which competencies are lacking in which employees, the entire training calendar is set. So if I am an executive, but I can do very well, and there is certain things which I need to be trained on to move up to a second level, that becomes a gap. And training helps you to fill the gap, right? So by arranging knowledge and skill requirements into categories, competency models organize and elaborate on what employee needs to perform their job successfully, right? So how does a competency structure helps in training and development? Again, it gives us a foundation. It shows the gaps from A to B. If there is a gap, how can we bring an employee from an A point to a B point? It helps in developing talents. The outcomes are better. The individual is, continuously doing a self-assessment. There's a uniformity in HR process. And again, it is in line to a larger organizational goal. We clear here?
Yes, ma'am.
Everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Yes, Yuvalakshmi.
Okay, so for example, a person has the competencies that are required for his or her job role.
I'm sorry, your voice is really low. Say that again, please.
Okay, can you hear me now better?
Yes, yes, much
Okay,
better. Thanks.
so a person has competencies that are required for his or her job roles,
Right.
and his or her coworker has competencies that are, maybe three or four competencies he or she has, and if they give training and development to the coworker, will the other coworker who has this competencies more will say, for example, so he has confidence and the other coworker is getting trained on confidence, so will the confidence be reduced in this coworker?
So let me just understand this. So there is coworker A and coworker B.
Yes,
A has all the competencies on the great level but
yes,
lacks confidence. B has confidence but lacks on certain competencies.
yes, ma'am.
After training, who will be given emphasis, or is what your
Yes, ma'am.
question is?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. Again, confidence is something that we can build, we can coach them, we can train them, right? Now, in every organization, in every team, you'll always face this, that there are 2 3 people eyeing for the same role or are worthy of the same role. How do you differentiate it? So what happens as a manager over a period of time, and that's why a yearly appraisal or yearly goal setting exercise is done, because it gives you an entire year to see whether this employee was, a better fit for the next level. Now, these are not just only parameters to give a promotion or to give a next levels. There are various other parameters. Like A, there were certain tricky situations. Were you able to deal with it in the manner your next level would have done? Or were you also able to take your team along? So it depends on what is the next promotional level. If it's a managerial position, the more focus is going to be whether you would be able to develop your team along with you, whether you were team member, were you taking care of your team members, were you able to lead, were you able to take initiatives, right? So if it's a technical position, then can we do a vertical appraisal? Can we do a vertical shift? So there are various, options, and depends on which organization you're working with, which industry, and how are they designed the goals and, the policies. So again, confidence is something that we can work on. Mentoring programs can be done, coachings can be done, trainings can be done over it, and we can bring that employee to the same level. But I can't give you a very specific answer to it, because again, it depends on the other aspects of the job and the person. Does it answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on. Performance management. It's a very important process of any human resource for any organization, for every industry. Now, performance management itself talks about integrity, being fair, because what happens the entire year an employee works, and when at the end of the year the fairness of treatment is not done, demotivation factor happens, employee exit, and a lot of chaos is created, right? So the entire process happens for the entire year. So some organization divide them into quarterly basis, some half yearly basis, some yearly basis. I have just came to learn that there are few organization which have started with a monthly appraisal system. It became a little tedious, then they moved to a quarterly thing. So organizations are, giving a lot of emphasis to this process. So basically, it is the process of ensuring that a set of activities and output meets an organizational goals in an effective and efficient manner. And competencies helps us to achieve it. Once you have set the competencies, once you've set the KRAs, your key results areas, or your KPIs, your performance indicators, you are going to be gauging them in this process. How much has this person achieved? How well was he in communication? What are the different instances where we can pick up this behavior and see he was good or bad? How good was he in selling, achieving his target, taking initiatives, or leading a team? Anything, examples. Defining what success should look like within the organization, it boils down to the performance of the workforce. A competency model can define what performance success should look like for each role within an organization. So that's the beauty of competency, is that every role, the competencies are designed in a way that every role more or less have the same competencies, but yet is different. Like I said, communication is required for almost all the job roles. But when you are designing the bars for it, it becomes different. The listening skills for a salesperson would be different. For a person who's sitting on a help desk would be different, right? This benchmark helps the human resource to connect the function of each job with organizational goals and also ensures that the talent of employees developed. So A, our target is fairness appraisal. The hard work is appraised, is rewarded. And also, when we realize that these are the areas that needs our immediate attention or needs a little push for an employee to move or grow within the same role, it becomes the development part of it. So this process is also helping your training and development process, because it is showing you gaps area, right? So how does competencies helps here? A, it sets the performance goals for us. It helps in delegating responsibility, because we understand that this person can handle a team well. So if an urgent situation comes where a team needs to be formed, we can always ask employee A to take care of it, because we know his competency in leadership is strong. Coaching areas are highlighted, gap areas are highlighted. Motivating and recognizing talent, it evaluates the performance, it eliminates bias nets, it helps in planning career development, because when the gaps occurs, we also realize what is the weak and the strength. So a SWOT analysis exercise is done more or less for an employee. It also enables people to self-assess, be it quarterly, be it half yearly, or be it yearly. Are we clear till here? Any questions?
I
Yeah.
had a question, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, there's an organization where there's an employee who is really good at his job. He's very good, like, when it comes to project management, this, that, and whatever he's doing in whatever role he's doing, he's really good. But one thing he lacks is he doesn't have the educational qualification that is required, ma'am. So in that situation, there are other people who do have the education qualification, but they're not really that great at the job as much as this one person is. So what would the company prioritize more if it comes to appraisal or something like that, where you have to see if that person can move forward or he can lead, and you have other people who have something and the other person doesn't. So what would be the priority in this situation? Will it be his education qualification or his performance, which is helping the organization grow, ma'am?
That's a very good question, Veronica. And I have a example that we had to face when I was working with Aditya Birla Group. What happens? This person was with us and working in one of the brands, and he was in the organization for 10 years. He was a graduate, but was very good in his work, right? And there was a time when he realized that he's due for a promotion, and even his manager and the brand people and all in line, realized that he needs a promotion. When the promotion, the case came to the HR, because the policies were set in a way that, we set a certain benchmark when it comes to, growth and promotion and assessment, that For this job, he needs to be an MBA. If he's coming from a reputed A plus, B plus, C plus college, then the salary bracket goes up here. If he has an experience of 2 years, then again the salary is this much. So this is how the structure policy was set. So when the case came to the HR, and an immediate response was that he is just a graduate, so there is a limit to the growth in the organization. But then later, when we sat and discussed this case in detail, we realized that because of our policies, because of a set designated, structured wordings, we were losing out on a very potential talent. So then, in sync with the brand, we made this as a special case, and we helped him. We sponsored a course for him, which was for a year, and it gave him a PG diploma kind of, so that it gives a push for the next promotion, because we knew that this person was ready for the next role, but because of the policies could not be changed, because it was a very big organization. So we helped the other way around. But in the beginning, when the policies were being set, there were a lot of changes made to it, and deviations were made. So again, it depends on how big the organization is, what are the policies, and how well are you going to understand your talent, and how far are you going to in terms of recognizing and rewarding the talent. So this is a very latest recent case, some 5 years back, when I had moved from one department to the other, or one process to the other, and then this case happened, and it was such a human thing, because they not only recognized what this employee had done for their brand, they also gave the preference that he was ready and prepared. All he was lacking was a degree on papers. So the brand and the HR, we decided, and we went out of the way and sponsored a year program for him.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I have something in this case.
Yes.
What if it was in the negative manner? If a person was not sponsored for any post graduation diploma or something, if he is not interested in any further education, what would be the next for him?
See, again, I'll say it depends on the organization and industry, you know. So when it comes to specific departments or specific industries or companies, they have set policies wherein they would want an employee from IIM only, for a particular role. They don't want to go beyond or below this in terms of which campuses they're going to, or they would want a 10-year experience only for a particular role. So it entirely depends on the organizations, the policies that they've made, or the guidelines that they have. There are a lot of organizations, who are working with graduates, and they are on very high positions in the organization. A push of a brand, be it your graduation or your master's, definitely gives you a highlight on the resume and gives you a push. But at the end of the day, it is what you've learned and how you can perform on the job. So if you're not performing and you're from IIM, I have loads of cases like this where we've asked, them to either leave, or we've just put them into a PIP IIM students. So there have been cases like this as well.
Okay.
Yeah. See, just because we don't have that particular thing which is being talked about in the marketing, actually brings us down to a larger extent, because our focus is only there, right? So if you can move your focus to the strengths and the positive aspects, I'm sure this won't bother you this much.
Yeah. Sorry, ma'am. I just still
Yeah.
want to go on with this again. I mean, is there any set of rules or something that only this much experience only is required, 10 years or something, or a candidate from a reputed institute only? Why this, ma'am? Because see, I just want to give one small example. If Virat Kohli is not performing, I mean, if Rishabh is performing, he is just 1 year in trend and he is having around 1.5 year of experience. If he is performing, then it doesn't make any sense that you need only 10 years of experience only, or you should come from the reputed institutes. I mean, why this bias?
See, when they have expectations and the guidelines are set that this is what they're looking for, somebody with a 10-year experience, that means that he's ready to do that particular job. We don't have to invest in terms of training and time and explaining him how things work. He knows how it works, right? So the investment in terms of training, coaching, mentoring, whatever you say, the headache becomes less because that person is ready to take charge. He has experience. And when we talk about a brand, like IIMs and other reputed MBA colleges, the only understanding that they have is that they have well studied, and the pressure that they have as compared to others and the theories and practicality that they've worked on makes them a pressure, to take the pressure in the corporate. So they are readily in terms of taking pressure, they are ready in terms of taking situational situations which are actually happening on the real world, real account. I personally don't believe in, they are the cream people, or somebody who's coming from a low college will not perform well, because as I said, we had a mix of employees in AVG, in retail, and we saw a lot of people who were coming from IIMs not being performing well, whereas people who had just graduation, in their hands were performing extremely well. So there have been contradictions, and again, this is how the guidelines and organization differs.
That was my point, ma'am, actually.
Yeah. So was I able to answer your question?
Yes, definitely, ma'am. But still, again, it's a bias everywhere.
Yes. And see, it happens in every industry, it happens everywhere. It's not only about the job market. Everywhere and at every level of life, you'll face this, right?
Yes,
So
yes,
if you have a certain chunk and percentage who are favoring the IIMs, there are other percentage who are not favoring them.
yes, of
So
course.
let's concentrate there.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, I had one doubt.
Yes,
Uh,
Surendra.
so, as you give an example about IAM, for example, this is a well-reputed organization which has been growing, and they have their policy which is fixed, and it doesn't usually change that much. So, if they have seen that mostly that decision of having an IAM has brought more negative impact than anything good, will they be ready to change the policy? Because now it's in a well-reputed thing, and the example that you gave where they made a exception, but they didn't really change the policy as such, because in a way they wanted to go on with it. But if they see that mostly when they're keeping only IAM people, mostly it's very more negative and things are going down the line, so will they be ready to change their policies as such, ma'am? Is it possible? Does it happen in reality?
Yeah, it does. Why would they have a policy which is not suiting them in the best of interest? Policies are made because there is a certain benefit, that is, it saves time. There's a certain guidelines that every department follows. So if I exit the HR department, the new person who comes just sees the guidelines and starts working. So a standard structured is made through them. So if you think that particular policy is not helping us out in the outcome that we require or that we are aiming for, then what is the use of that policy? We will
Oh,
change it.
yes, ma'am. That's what I want to know. Even though they're well reputed, will they be willing to?
See, you need to have a number of reported, cases, registered cases for it. You need to have registered examples for it to change it. Just because one person has not performed well, you can't just take up that case and change the entire policy, right?
Yes, ma'am.
It needs to be a repetitive affair.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So I like how you're thinking and asking questions, guys. Good. The more you think, the more you expand. Good. Why are the other girls silent? Trying to sleep? Megha?
No, ma'am. It's like if I have a question, it's most of it is like answered. So
Okay, great. So let's move on. So I will show you two examples of performance management. One is, this sample will talk about their key results areas or their KPIs, and the other example will talk about their behavioral, right? So if you see this sheet, the first section is your KRAs. So the KRA says to increase the sales and market share. And now they further divided them into themes. What are the indicators of it? A, to achieve and surpass the GOP targets, recognize and grow new business segments and clients, effective sales plan and implementation, and so on, right? So what are they doing? They've taken a very broad KRA and they've divided it detailed into further down. So what happens is it helps us to understand A, what is the job required out of that particular job and how well we can assess them, how well we can assess the employee. So if you see, the weightage is given. There is this 40% of weightage given to how well they're going to be achieving their targets and surpass the GOP targets, right? So now this can be a standard operating process that they had set, or it must be a department concern. Again, I don't know. To recognize and grow new business segments and clients, the weightage is 10%. So they'll be assessed comparing to this weightage. So if they've done 100% in recognizing and they've got new businesses or new clients, so out of 10%, they're going to be given ratings here, right? And once all the ratings are given, so first an employee assess himself on these ratings, and then the reporting manager assesses. And based on the cumulative score, we come to an aggregated sum, and based on that, a rating is given, a target is set, right?
ma'am, I did not understand.
Yeah, Megha.
Could you just repeat it again?
I'm sorry, your voice is really low.
Ma'am, I could not understand. Could you repeat it?
Sure. Okay. So do you know what a KRA and KPIs are?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So when we talk about KRAs, KRA is basically your areas where you'll be assessed on. And your KPIs further divides them into. So KRA is your increased your sales and get me new clients and market share. So they further divided it by saying that one's assessment area would be that you get me new clients. Second area would be that you achieve your targets. Third would be that you constant upgrade your product knowledge and then use the same knowledge while making calls to the customer. The fourth area under the same segment would be that you develop strong relationship with your team and with the clients and also with the vendors. So all of this you have to do simultaneously when you're dealing the customer or selling a product or giving a support of the product, right? Now against each performance indicator there's a weightage given, something which is very important and can't be ignored is given a higher weightage. So achieving or surpassing your targets is given a 40% weightage out of your 100, right? So once you achieve your targets, you will be assessed on, so suppose you achieve your 100% target, so you'll get a 40% here, right? And the entire total of your KRA sheet is 100%. So year end, you are giving a rating to your own self. Like if I'm the employee, I will say I have achieved 80% of my target. So I'll write here 80%. I was able to get 7 new clients. So I think I have done full justice. I did 10% of my job here. Then say I was able to develop strong relationship with my team. I got new clients and all the vendors are happy with me. But yeah, there was one complaint. So I would say 8% I did my job. So I am self-assessing myself on it. I'm also giving evidences. I'm also giving what were the, um, what do you call it? Proofs of the same, right? And then my reporting manager gives his rating on my work. So he says, yeah, he was able to achieve his targets, but then I remember when other employee asked him to help him with the same client, he refused. So I think the team management thing is something. So what happens? The perception changes of the same event. You think you overachieved because you're only thinking in terms of target. The manager has a different perception, so he gives a little lower rating on that, right? So both the ratings together combined gives you cumulative weightage. So suppose out of 40%, you've only achieved 18%. The rest manager thinks you were not able to achieve, right? And once both the ratings cumulative score is set, the average total is taken out, and based on that, your comments are set and your appraisal is done.
Got it, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So, welcome. So this is how the KRA or KPIs sheet would look like. And this is how your behavioral competency thing would look like. So this is an example of a leadership profile of a job role. So if you see the leadership competencies says that A, it provides clear and confident direction. No matter who goes to him, he's very clear on what direction to give and how to direct the team. Second, he develops individual and team objectives. Third, he's conducting regular one-on-one check-ins with team members. So he's ensuring that each and every one in the team is taken care of and they're growing as a team as well as individual. They develop plans aligned to the company goals. They obtain and manage resources to achieve planned outcomes. So these are leadership competencies that they've assessed. Now they'll be assessing an employee based on this, right? So if the management feels that he needs a little, development in providing clear and confident direction, because there were cases where he wasn't very sure of what to do or what direction or how to direct the group. So they'll mark a section under needs development. If they think that employee is very strong in that, under HC, which is highly competent, they'll mark there. Or if he is exceptional, he is just ready for the next level role, then an exceptional. So this is how they assess them on behaviors based on situations that had happened, based on the interaction with employees or customers that had happened. Is it clear? Any questions on this one or the earlier slide?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Let's see how competencies helps in career management. Competencies define the key requirement for successful performance within jobs. Identifying the roles, specific skills, requirements, and behavioral examples of those skills so employees can own their career planning. So what are we doing? Competencies, as I said, was the foundation. It gives a structure, and based on that structure, we are planning careers of employees. So if you see this example, it'll be clearer. So there is this person who joined as a recruitment specialist, and then he was made after 2 years a generalist HR. And then the department or the management felt that I think he is ready for a manager position. He has all the competencies, or we can develop it, or he's just ready to take up the charge. He was promoted to a manager role. And then few years down the line, he became a senior manager and then to a vice president, right? So this is how a career planning is done when the confidence, when the trust is built in an employee, that he has what it takes to go up the ladder. So how is it helping in career management? A, it enables people to self-assess. It also assess and helps them in doing a SWOT analysis for themselves. And once they do that for themselves, it's easier for them to work on their weak areas and converting them into their strength areas. It also gives clarity in the growth path, because when you know where you're standing and where you have to go. So if somebody says, okay, why don't you join me for the party? I am standing near a yellow building. Now, is it possible in a city for you to understand where the yellow building is unless a proper address is given to you, right? So if you're standing in Bangalore and this person says that you have to come for an interview in Delhi on this address. So Bangalore becomes your A address where you are, and Delhi is the B address where you have to go. So once you understand where you are and where you have to go, the growth path, the clarity becomes clear. It's easy for you to decide on which medium needs to be taken to reach there. Okay. It eliminates biasness. It also helps for the best talent for any job. So when the career planning is done, when we realize we also choosing the best candidate for a particular role. Uniformity in HR process, and obviously it is aligned to your organizational goals. Any questions here? Assuming no. Okay. Leadership and development. Leadership competencies are skills and attributes that you can possess, which makes you a good leader. Now, this is something that you can, have it within you, but how do you show it? How do you demonstrate it? It takes some time. Or maybe you're already showing these competencies in your roles, current roles. So your competency in A, that you have this competency, and second, you have the ability to show it. These skills will increase the trust and commitment that your team has in you. So you're taking more initiatives, you are giving more direction to the teams, you're setting up more goals, you're also telling them how and what to do in less time, is all the attributes to it. So how are competencies helping us in leadership and development? We are highlighting again the same from A to B. And once the gap is identified, based on the competencies, we are coaching and mentoring the best talent. The clarity is immense in the process. Your goals and organizational goals are aligned, and it eliminates biasness, because when it comes with a structured process, there is no favoritism or preferences given. It is solely on the process based. So this is how the HR process and competencies help us. Any questions here?
No, ma'am.
All clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Nothing. So this is, where is it? Yeah, one second. Yeah. So this is your examples of competencies for a leadership and how the career planning was done. So first we identified what are the competencies that were required for that leadership, and then a development program was sent, designed and made for the gap analysis. So there were different competencies, as you can see. Focus on results. How did they find out? They found out through that it drives for the results. He establishes a stretch goals. He's taking initiatives. The competency leading change. What are the behaviors that represented it? It says it develops strategic perspective. He's a champion of change. He doesn't feel uncomfortable when the change needs to happen. He takes up the charge. Connects the group to the outside world. So there is just not a cocoon or just one team working. He's well aware of what is happening outside in the market as well. Characters, he displays high integrity and honesty. Interpersonal skills, he communicates powerfully and profitably. Inspires and motivates others for high performance. So he's not only taking care of himself and growing, he's ensuring that the team goes with him, grows with him, and learns with him. He builds relationships, develops other, he collaborates and pays attention to teamwork. What are the personal capabilities? Technically strong, professional expertise, solves problems and analyzes issues, very strong with innovations, and practices self-development. So these are the different competencies that talks about leadership and how a development program can be made for any leadership role or for any individual who can be a good fit for a leadership. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions here?
Ma'am, I had a doubt.
Yeah.
So during this performance appraisal and things, where once the employee does a self, evaluation, and then the manager, does the review and sees if he or she has been up to what they're saying. But
Right.
what if the employee doesn't have a good relationship with the manager, and because of which it affects their rating, and which in turn stops the growth of the employee? So how do you ensure that uh, the thing is fair enough, that just because of their biasness or their relationship not being good enough, it's affecting the growth of an employee, ma'am? How do you ensure that?
Right. See, when we are setting up a process, any process in HR, we need to ensure that A, the employees welcome that process, understands that process, and in case of any feedback, it is welcomed by the HRs as well. So, especially with performance appraisal, when it is being introduced to as a newly process to any organization, there are a lot of hiccups in the process which takes place from the employee side, because they realize that we were doing so well with my manager. I was his favorite. I was doing all his work. He used to appraise me. And now suddenly a structured format is set. So I'll have to achieve my targets. And this won't be necessary now. Right. But when a structure format is set and the process needs to be followed, it becomes the duty of an HR to set up processes where a continuous monitoring is done and feedback is shared. A very good example that I'll give you. So when I had joined Madra Fashion in retail, this was some 12, 15 years back. Okay. There was no performance appraisal system happening there. So what we were doing is the manager used to just sit with the employee and says, okay, your appraisal is due and I'm going to communicate whatever the appraisal is. There was no more discussion on that. So the employee was clueless on what parameters he's being assessed on, and the manager had the entire control of a particular employee's appraisal. So whosoever he thinks was his favorite or was doing as he was saying used to get a higher appraisal. So there was a lot of biasness. Now, when the process came, there were regional HRs appointed, and we ensured that whenever appraisal happens, the employee and the manager sits with the HR. So it happens in front of them. A proper discussion happens. So A, they were trained well. All the managers, all the employees were trained on how the process will work. So every month they will sit with their reporting manager and they will discuss all the parameters, how much have they achieved, how much they need to achieve and how they will achieve, and what training program they'll be assigned to. And there was a monthly sheet that needs to be prepared by the manager and sent to the regional HR. HR used to collate, monitor all the sheets, and then work on a regional data and then send it further, right? Based on that sheet, we used to keep a constant monitoring whether it is the same sheet, same data coming every month. And we used to just randomly pay a visit to any store, sit with them randomly, just surprise them, sit with them, see what discussion is happening. Or all the employees, be it the manager level, the leadership level, or any brand, whenever they were traveling, they were asked to visit any store, pick up any random employee, and ask them about their performance sheet. So there was a portal. So suppose I am from Calcutta and I'm traveling to Delhi, and I am in a particular area and I see one of my store brand. I just walks in, open the portal on my system, and ask the employee, what's your name? And he says, my name is so and so, and this is my employee ID. He fills that employee ID in that portal. His, for that month, performance sheets open up. And then he asks questions. Was your discussion done with your manager? Was it done this way? Was it done this way? Do you know your rating? Do you know what training programs you've applied for, you've been assessed on, and so on. And if he thinks that the employee is aware of what is happening monthly and it is being done nicely, then he just adds a remark. But if he feels that something is wrong and there is a miss, then again a remark was added. And based on that remark, a committee was set and a complaint was taken. So it was a very solid proof, strong networking and monitoring system that took place, especially for the first year, because as I said, it was a new process and everybody was taking it very lightly. So a very strong, push was given by the management team. And now I think it is a very regular process and everybody is aware of what is to be done, how it is to be done. And they also know if they don't follow the process, so not only from HR, anybody can, raise a question and anything can happen. So this is taken as a very serious offense if the process is not followed. So, but then again, it is dependent on how the organization works, what are the policies, what are the guidelines, how are they monitoring system, how well do they want it to happen. So that's how it works. So when it was introduced, I remember we had, my God, so many stores to travel, and we had to sit with so many employees to see how the appraisal was done, and so much of formats and data filling and everything we had to do for that initial 1 year, just so that the process gets synced with employees and in the system. So it was a tedious year, but yes, it was fruitful.
Thank you, ma'am.
What else? Any more questions?
Ma'am, I had a doubt.
Yes.
How does competencies help with compensation and benefits?
So competencies sets up your performance appraisal sheets and you're assessed on that,
Yes, ma'am.
right? And based on the assessment, you're promoted or appraisal is given.
Yes, ma'am.
And based on that appraisal, only your compensation and reward will think come, right?
Okay. Got it, ma'am.
Right. Also, some organizations works on a different engagement and reward systems. So what happens, they realize that there is a gap in competencies. So it can be either filled with a training program, a coaching program, or a mentoring program, or why don't we do an engagement around that and reward it? So as I said, every employee is different and is motivated by different factors, right? So for some employees, a little raise in the salary or a little monetary reward excites them. For some, given a family vacation excites them. For some, if you invite their parents to the organization and say your ward is doing an excellent job, gives them a kick. It motivates them. So every employee has a different motivating factor. So based on that, we did a survey and we realized that this percentage of employee will get motivated by rewards. This percentage will get pushed if we do an engagement program, around a training thing. So again, first you need to understand who your employee is, the lifeline of it, what is your organization, what are the products, and once you understand everything based on the survey and everything, you realize, who gets motivated with whom, and then you can work on different programs. It's easy, but you need to understand your client well, employees well. That's a must thing.
Got it, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, any other question? All clear, huh? Impressive. Okay.
Ma'am,
So, yeah,
so every organization has a training and development department or a team
right.
who will plan what to do for the employee. But who will actually plan what to do for the training and development team itself?
They are also employees, no? So the same process works for them as well.
So
So an
they
HR,
plan it for themselves.
no. So the same process, as I said. So HR executive will fill the same assessment sheet for himself, and his reporting manager will fill the same sheet for him. And based on that sheet only, the training programs will be defined or assigned.
Okay, ma'am, got it.
Right? So it's the same process across everywhere. ऐसा नहीं है, HR people are taken care of. Don't feel bad on that. Any more questions? Think. Coming week, the coming class, we will be talking about recruitment and selections. I will be talking more about the psychometric. How does it helps us? Why are we using it, and why most of the organization are paying more importance to it, especially, nowadays when everything is online and we are hiding through portals and all that. So we'll be stressing more on that. So recruitment and selection is what we plan to cover in the coming class. Right? So if we don't have any question, we can end here. Are we good to go? Come on,
Yeah.
guys, give me a yes or no.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm happy to go, huh? Okay, so I'll end the session here. I hope competencies and why it was used and why is it so important for all the processes is clear. Again, sleep over it. This will be available online to you. Think about it, think of questions. If anything comes in, feel free to WhatsApp me in the group, or we can talk in the next class. Until then, take care and be safe. Yeah. Good night.
Right,
And
ma'am.
thank you. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Good night.
Thank you, ma'am.